Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I want to know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, yeah. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host. Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Wellness Wednesday. Wellness Wednesday is an opportunity for you, me, and my guests to talk about whatever it is we want to talk about. And today we are talking about intergenerational conversation and healing. Intergenerational conversation and healing. You know, sometimes you just gotta let it out, right? Sometimes you gotta talk about it. And so my special guest, actually, I have was connected with her through another special guest that I had on, Ms. Cortina Peters, the girlfriend therapist. And so I'm going to introduce her in just a minute. But before I do, as I often do, I want to hear from you. This is an interactive live. We are live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on the Greater Works Network on RokuTV. So if you will, in the comments, let us know what city and state you are tuning in from, what city and state you are tuning in from, and tag a friend and tell them they need to be on here because we are about to dive in. This is a safe space. So I encourage you to put your comments and questions in the chat, and we will definitely do our best to address them. So I see you, Miss Daisha, right here in Tally Ho. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you. Hey there, Yolanda and Charlotte. Thanks for tuning in. And my girlfriend, Beverly Susan in Hampton, Virginia. Thank you for being here. Oh, we got Vaughn Blakely. Vaughn was one of my guests. We talked about Blacks and autism not long ago out of Charlotte. Thank you for being on here, Vaughn. Appreciate you. And I know you recently came back from South Africa, I believe. I hope you had a delightful time. I know your sister Tiffany said that she did. So, y'all, it's been a lot going on these last 24 hours. I tell you, I was talking with my guests about just the massacres in America, and it's just been way too much to bear. So I want to just give pause just for a moment of silence for the people who lost their lives in the Texas massacre that took place yesterday. So if y'all would just give a moment of silence and put your thoughts and prayers and energy towards the people who lost loved ones there at this moment. Amen. All right, so let's get started. My guest is Miss Delphine Gervais. She is the founder and CEO of the group Private Practice Breakthrough Care and Resource Center, Inc. As a licensed clinical social worker with experience in education, health, social welfare, community development, corporate settings, and individual family group intervention services. She is licensed to practice in Florida, Georgia, and New Jersey. Delphine enjoys mentoring tomorrow's mental health professionals as a qualified supervisor. And she resides down in South Florida. Self-care for Delphine looks like reading fictional novels, relaxing on her patio, traveling, and blogging about it. So help me welcome Miss Delphine Gervais. Yay! Good evening. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Nicole.
My pleasure. So I will tell you another clinician that I've had on when I tagged him in the story the other day or yesterday, and he said, "Did I introduce you to her?" And I was like, "I think so." And then I went back and looked at my notes, and I was like, "No," but he was like, "That's my girl," and it was Jay.
Ah,
It was Jay from Kai Wellness. So hopefully he'll be on here joining us tonight.
yes, yes. Awesome
Yes.
colleague. Awesome colleague
Indeed,
in the word.
indeed, indeed. So tell the people, who is Delphine? Not what you do, but who are you?
I am a formerly shy girl from St. Martin, Netherlands Antilles, the Caribbean.
Mhm.
My parents are Haitian immigrants, born and raised there until mid 80s, and they immigrated here to South Florida. So
Mhm.
I am a product of the 305 through and through. Can't
All
nobody tell
right.
me different.
Maiden day.
Yes, maiden day. Went to the best high school in South Florida, Miami
Mm,
High.
mm. I don't know
Not
about all that. Mm-mm.
not up for debate. Not up for debate here. Not tonight anyway. um, Man, I went matriculated through school. I was the typical Haitian girl whose parents were like, "You can't go away for school." And at the time, it wasn't feasible because of just all the things dealing with immigration back then. But I was fortunate to earn a scholarship to go to FIU, and then I matriculated through Barry. Um, so I'm not shy anymore, but I'm definitely still an introvert. And self
Okay.
awareness is a game changer because it's helped me to realize where my energy goes, how my energy goes. I love to write. It's kind of hot right now, but the patio was the spot through the spring. A lot of my clients would be like, "Where are you now?" And I'm like, "I'm just on my patio, doing me." Love to travel. Pandemic kind of made that stop a little bit, but I still kind of travel through that. Recently went on a concert trip with some of my college roomies up to DC.
Okay. Nice.
Planning to go some other places because listen, we have this one life, and if we have not learned anything else, we got to
Indeed.
make sure
Indeed.
we are taking care of self and enjoying our time. So
Indeed.
I am
Indeed.
married. I can't forget. I'm married to somebody I actually like, not
Well,
just love, but I
that's a
like.
blessing. That's a blessing.
His name is Eddie Jervis. We've been at this
Okay.
4 years.
Nice.
Um, so yes, that is me in a nutshell.
Awesome, awesome. Now, what prompted you to travel down this counseling social work journey path?
Growing up in 1980s Miami as um, a child of immigrant heritage, and in particularly a child that came from a space that not too many people knew, I knew what bullying was before that was even a word and a term and all the things that
Mhm,
come with
mhm.
that. I was the kid who I spoke with a Caribbean accent and I told people I was Haitian. They were like, "No, you not, because that don't sound like you're Haitian." And so I dropped the accent quickly because I had to conform.
Right.
Um, so experiences in school and just being part of a community that was disadvantaged and that is still historically been disadvantaged in South Florida, seeing
Mhm,
my parents go through employers that took advantage of them. You know, my
mhm.
mom was a loyal employer working in a factory in Hialeah, and she was coming home and had stayed home for quite a bit of time. And I was like, "So what's going on with work?" And she was like, "Well," I said, "Well, are they paying you?" And she was like, "Well, what do you mean if I'm oh, ma'am, employment, and if they laid you off, they need to be paying for this." And I remember I was just out of undergrad calling them and giving them the business. But it's always been about being exposed to what it was to not have and being Because I realized I wanted to go into a helping field
Okay.
in social work, but social work being what it is has taken me through different paths. I was a Head Start social worker, so I worked
Oh, wow.
education and public education as a school social worker. So, my heart is with my educator colleagues around the country today because
Indeed.
I have been one of the ones called down here to go to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas to see
Mm,
what the after effects of trauma looks like. And being a social worker has led me through different spaces, medical spaces, home health, hospital settings,
mm-hmm.
and ultimately landed me as a group private practice owner um, at this time. So
Nice.
I come before you as a business owner at Breakthrough Care and Resource. We are 100% virtual, serving Florida, New Jersey, and Georgia right now.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, again, welcome and thank you for your service. I know, especially at such a time as this, what you do is even, that much more critical during these times of crisis. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So before we dive in, I got to read my disclaimer since I have a clinician on here. So all topics, past, present, and future on Conversations with Nicole are for informational purposes only. They are not to be used as diagnosis for treatment or an answer to any personal issues related to the topic being discussed before, during, or after the program. I said
Yes,
it.
ma'am. Yes,
All
ma'am.
right.
This is
Yes.
purely
So
psychoeducational, not
exactly.
clinical.
Exactly. So you can get with Delphine and her people after the live, which that's what I'm hoping happens. You all connect with them. Okay, so Dr. Asha said, I can't imagine being on the front lines of trauma response. Thank you for giving of yourself to guide others through the healing journey as well.
Thank
Amen.
you, Doc Asha. Thank you.
For
On behalf
sure.
of me and my colleagues that are in this work.
Hmm. Indeed. So, you and I talked almost a month ago now, and through our conversation came up with this topic of intergenerational conversation. And I just threw the healing on there because I'm hoping through the conversation that some healing will take place.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's talk about that. Like, what when you hear that term intergenerational conversation, what do you think of?
I think about the multi generations that we have in our households, in our community, as a people.
Hmm.
Family is important. They tell you, my mom would always tell me and my brother, we are all we got.
Hmm.
And when we are all we got, we understand that to mean that through thick and thin, through high water, low waters, family is what we have.
Hmm.
I remember growing up with my grandmother in the home. She was part of my memory when she would come from Haiti and stay with us, and the other peoples that we had access to. So
Yes.
when I think about inter, I'm also thinking multi generational spaces.
Hmm.
But for today's conversation, focusing on family, uh,
Hmm.
how do we navigate that? This pandemic caused a lot of us to be in spaces with people for long periods of time.
Yes.
Um, Cousins were living with cousins. People were patching up and were like, all right, we just gonna do this together. We'll take these two coins, rub them together, and get $1 out of this because the sky is falling.
Hmm.
People went back to family. People brought family into their spaces. I know for us, it was bringing our in-laws to stay with us for a time
Hmm.
because we knew that that would be what would be necessary to get through what we knew then was to be the unknown, right? We didn't know. For all we knew, COVID was just falling from the sky. That's as much as we knew in
Hmm.
those early days. And we were
Right.
afraid because elderly people were being impacted. So, yeah, we brought these people in, but then there came the reminders of, oh, wow, there's certain things, I don't like hearing this, or I'm grown, or remembrances of things that are now coming up for us
Mhm.
across the generations, that we now, if we are honest with ourselves, we are in deeper reflection about. Because if you spent many years not living with your parents and now they're coming to stay with you for a season, or if circumstances have it where they have to live with you now because you're a caregiver, things are
Mhm.
coming up for you. Unaddressed things are coming up for you, things that you would have rather kept in the closet. So I
Mhm.
think that's the focus for the conversation for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have well said in terms of definitely COVID has kind of heightened that because we were spending more time together in close quarters. And so now we are really seeing some of our idiosyncrasies that maybe we didn't see or notice before because we're separated and everybody was off doing their own thing. So now it's diving deeper and getting a better understanding of, you know, why are you doing it? Why are you saying it? What's the thoughts behind that,
And
right?
mind you, these are things that had always been said. No
Mhm.
one, no, there are no new spots. These are things that are being said, things that are being done, that because of one's heightened level of self-awareness, we now
Mhm.
realize this not okay. I don't feel good about it. I may not know why I don't feel good about it, but I don't feel good about it. Or this leaves me exhausted,
Yes.
or this leaves me disappointed, afraid, questioning. And
Mhm.
so that is what then leads to the decisions that we may feel like we have to make.
Right. So Dr. Asha said, yes, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, and elders have all come to stay with my family over the years. I also stayed with a relative for a time. I've always appreciated support of the village that is my family. It can certainly be an adjustment, though, especially when you add more adults with their own routines, habits, mindsets, etc., into other adults' personal space.
Mhm. We know
Absolutely.
culturally, whether we're of Caribbean heritage, African American, the diaspora, there's this
Mhm.
saying that I am certain probably came across the waters on the journey for all of us, was two grown people can't be in the same house.
Uh-huh.
And so that then bleeds into what were our lived experiences while being in the first our caregivers' home. And
Mhm.
so we start thinking about what our attachment styles look like. And that's a fancy way of exploring how did our primary caregivers, our mothers, our fathers, or grandparents, or whomever took care of us in those formative years,
Mhm.
how was their caregiving style and how did that impact how we move through life now? Um,
Mm.
we can break it down to mean one of two different ways if it's not a healthy way. And that is either we learn to have an anxious way of functioning in terms of our attachment to people in general and relationships,
Okay.
or avoidant. So the easier one to kind of figure out is the avoidant, because that's the one where, like, if this problem happens, I'm running for the hills.
Mm.
I'm getting out the chat.
Mhm.
I'm not coming to Thanksgiving dinner. You
Mhm.
won't see me unless it's a funeral. If there's a conversation and this elephant is in this room, you will not count on me to be the one to address it, because
Mhm.
that's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to be avoidant. And it stems from how we were conditioned to see conflict. Because
Mhm.
if mom and dad or whomever is at 100 every time there's an argument or a disagreement, then it's that child, that inner child, that covers their ear and closes their eyes and says, I don't want to deal with this. This is too much. I'm being
Right.
emotionally flooded with all of these emotions that I don't have words for. And because I don't like this feeling, I'm not going to replicate it in my friendships. I will
Mhm.
be okay with just pretending that everything is okay. I
Yeah.
will replicate this in my romantic relationships because I
Mhm.
want to make sure that I don't rock the boat. And so it plays out in our families as well. Or I could be that anxious person that I'm not going away, I am going to, and I'm poking the bear. I
Hmm.
am trying to make sure everything is going to be okay. I am nagging. I am giving unsolicited advice. I am trying to make myself known because I need to make sure everything is okay. I need to fix this. And so the anxiety is driving that more than being well meaning. Um, and so we have those two styles at war in our families, and they show up in I'm sure right now, family members' behaviors are coming up. Even in your own self awareness, you're like, well, dang, that's me. You just described me. Um, those two styles are at war in the multi generations.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pause real quick here and just tap into the viewers and ask uh, how many of you, and you can just raise your hand, give me a church finger or a thumbs up or something, have experienced avoidant relationships or avoidant behavior amongst family members. Avoidant. So they're gonna try to that what do they say? Fight or flight or freeze.
Yep.
These are the ones that's going. It's gonna be flight. They're getting up out of there. They
Yep.
don't
Running
want
for
no
the
parts of
hills.
it. All
Running
right.
for the hills.
Indeed. All right. Avis T, thanks for being here. Kendra said her. Maya, yes. Pamela, yes. Marsh, yes. Katie said, I do it. All right.
Come on now.
I
Come on
appreciate your
now.
transparency, Katie. Let us know. Look,
Yes.
avoid a church finger. All right. Shantae,
Yes.
yes. Okay. All right. All right. Now I'm gonna switch now. What about the anxious one? What about the anxious one? Let us know. Look, if anxious,
For the
if
drama. They for the drama. Everything
yeah.
is a crisis.
So give us an X. Give us an X or for the anxious one. Put an X up. Put an X up for the anxious one. All right. Connie said yes. Maya said yeah. Oh my goodness. So both, I think both have been in folks' family. Look,
Mhm.
Marsh said mercy. Mercy, yes. Maya said X X X X X. Yeah,
Yeah, we all
lots of
see
drama there.
ourselves. We all see ourselves
Yeah.
on either side of the spectrum. And those of us
Hmm.
who study attachment styles, we know even among that there's the fearful avoidant, there's the anxious preoccupied, dismissive avoidant. But what we are striving for is that secure attachment, the one that says, I'm confident in how I feel about certain things. I don't like this thing. I'm going to speak on it in a way that's going to be assertive, but you
Mm.
will hear me. I am going to be responsive, not reactive. And I'm going to push through the discomfort that I'm feeling to make sure that I take care of self.
So you just said a mouthful right there, pushing through the discomfort that I'm feeling.
Hmm.
So that's a whole level of self-awareness that, you know, I think folks may not even be mindful of, you know?
Hmm.
Like really like tapping into like, okay, I'm feeling discomfort. Like Kendra just said. She said, when I'm anxious, I do nag. I am only recently recognizing as nagging.
Nagging, yeah. It happens to the best of us,
Hmm.
Nicole. We're all experiencing these levels of emotions. And are we, like you said, mindful? Are we taking the time to sit in the discomfort? And not just to go and busy ourselves with something else, but to sit in the discomfort and say, I notice that every time this is happening, I then do this. So
Hmm.
now let me take time to say, when this is happening, what am I thinking?
Mm.
And stopping
Yes.
long enough to think through, I going back to the pandemic, I am an anxious person by nature. I worry. And my husband, being who he was, still had to conduct business outside the home, whereas I was home working from home. I would get anxious about him being out there. And I had to make note of that earlier on, have a conversation about that earlier on, because if it wasn't for that, it would have been a row, row, row every time he walked through the doors of, you got to take all your clothes off and leave your shoes here. And da, 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 da. It would have been a whole other level of frustration that would have came out of that. So self-awareness meant that I had to fall back and realize that when I'm not in control of a situation, my anxiety starts to go up.
Yes.
And so in self-awareness, whether we are realizing it now, because someone said, I'm just now recently, Kendra, it is okay.
Yes.
Knowing, like G.I. Joe said, for those of us who are old enough to remember that cartoon, knowing is half
the battle. Knowing is half the battle. Amen.
And so if it don't matter when we figure it out. I have clients who are like, I'm in my 30s, I should know better. And I remember older mentors saying, if you live long enough. So that self-awareness comes from learned experiences, from sitting and pushing through that discomfort to now say, now that I understand my behavior stem from a fear, a lived experience, a past experience. Now, because of it, I think this way. Because I think this way, I feel this way. Because I feel this way, I act this
way. The cognitive triangle.
Make it make sense so that now I can take this newfound information and I can do one of two things. I can decide that I'm going to have those conversations with my parent, my partner, my cousins, my siblings, or I can choose one of those extreme attachment styles, run for the hills, or have it show up in the most dysfunctional way.
Yes. So Tyrone said, I've avoided certain family members when visiting from out of town purposely to avoid messy energy.
So now that Tyrone has figured out there is a certain type of energy and behavior that he does not want to conform to, not want parts of, we got to think about, what do we do with that? Are we going to spend our lives, just saying, I want no parts? Or do we evaluate to what extent will we have relationships with these people? And that's where the conversation about boundaries come into play.
Okay.
Because Tyrone has to figure out if this has truly been harmful to him. No one is going to ask anyone to go back to anything that has been emotionally and physically harmful to them.
Right.
No one should. That is detrimental. And I know there are spaces that speak to that. I'm of the school of thought that if this has caused you harm, unless that person is ready to, first the forgiveness that comes into play, but unless that person is ready to change said behaviors, you can't afford to put yourself in harm's way again. But we get to decide, Tyrone, what our boundaries look like. Will we have rigid boundaries with these messy folks? Will we have porous boundaries for the sake of the family with said messy folks?
Right.
Will we have healthy boundaries? I always bring to, I'm a visual person, so I always tell my clients, think about your property. You own a property. It's your house, your apartment, wherever you're at. And the lawn is exposed. You don't got fences. People see your pool. They see you out here in your bathing suit, your fupas, all out for everybody's business, all your stuff. They could see through your house, no blinds, no nothing. You're exposed. That is porous. That is the water that hits those sponges and the water come right out. Nothing is blocking. Or the rigid, where nothing is going in, nothing is going out. These tall concrete walls are up. People don't even know you got a house behind it because they can't see anything. Or healthy boundaries, where it's They see there's breathing space, there's a fence. You see my house. You even see my windows, but whether you see inside is up to me. I might decide
Mm,
I keep my blinds up all during the day, but when the sun sets, they coming down because I don't need you to see inside my house. Uh,
mm,
or my backyard. I decide whether I want to have the fence 5 feet up, 7 feet up. I decide whether I want to have the slatted fence. I decide on those things because I get to decide the level of access you now have to me.
mm-hmm,
And then a lot of people think, well, that's just about self, but it's really about both parties.
mm-hmm,
I'm protecting me, but I'm also protecting you in a way. I am keeping you from falling into making the mistakes that you've made in the past. Because if you got a problem with how you talk to me, or if you have a problem with um, thinking that my money is accessible to you and you could just pick up the phone and ask me for a stack and expect me to give it to you, a
mm-hmm.
stack is what, 1,000? Um,
Yes.
I need to now say, I'm just not in the habit and I'm not in the practice of loaning money to family. Or if I loan, it's going to be a certain amount and I know that I'm not going to get that money back. I had someone
Mm-hmm.
say, yeah, I loan money, but it's money that I can afford not to get back. So
Right.
for me, that could be $20. For anybody else, it could be $200. But I have
Mm-hmm.
just created protection for me by limitations and you, because now you not put in a predicament where you getting upset at me because I done loaned you this money and now I'm feeling some type of way because I got to pay it back.
Right.
Is I set the limitations up front. Everybody knows where everybody else stands.
Mm-hmm. So I want to pause for just a moment to do a little what I call station identification. So for those of you who are just joining us, this is Conversations with Nicole. We are talking about intergenerational conversations and healing with Delphine Gervais of Breakthrough Care and Resource Center based in South Florida. And so Delphine, there was a question from Katie. Katie wants to know what happens when you ignore the foolery.
Well, the question is when what's the goal? What's the end game in ignoring the foolery? Are you hoping it goes away?
Mm-hmm.
And does it go away?
Mm.
People are gonna people. Family
People
members.
are going to listen. Wait a minute, man. Wait, you got to say that again.
My friends know me for this one. People are going to people. And that is be who they are in their full glory, in our full glory. When I bring myself to the space, I'm bringing my type A, checking off boxes self to the relationship. So I'm peopling. People know when Delphine is in the space, she's going to act this way. People are going to people. That's a guarantee. So my question to you, Katie, is when you are ignoring, what are you actually trying to do? What behaviors are you trying to solicit from grandma them, from auntie them who ain't got no filter? They got zero respects for you. They still think you're a kid. What is the end game in all of that? And if the end game is to change behavior, is that happening?
Mm-hmm. Very good question. Katie says she loves it. And lots of folks are chiming in on this. People are going to people.
Yeah. Yes. That's
Yeah.
guaranteed.
Mm-hmm. So I think, again, the conundrum with the family is, this where you came from, right? But they could be real
Like young
toxic.
folks say, they can be aggy. I worked in
Oh,
high school. I picked up all the lexicons. They could be aggy, code word for
aggravating.
aggravating. Um,
Yes.
and because as a people of color, as Black folks, we were indoctrinated with the family is all you got. And so
Yep.
that came with the understanding, unfortunately, that we would harbor secrets for family. We would lie for family. We would deny, even to up to point to harm to self for
Mm.
family.
Yes.
And that is the danger that comes
Mhm.
with taking on this thought like, oh my God, this thing has happened. Yes, this person was molesting other children. It wasn't just the one child. You're talking about you hear generations of children being harmed by people because family was keeping secrets.
Mhm.
You heard of mental abuse, domestic violence, like we don't get in their business. What they do over there is their business, long as they
Mhm.
don't come around me and do it. Or, in the Haitian community, Haitians have this thing where they say "pa gen bouche pour parler," meaning there is no mouth to speak. You just didn't speak on those things. That
Mm.
is what we were conditioned. But we
Mhm.
understand now with our mental health, those things cannot be supported. It does not make for generational health. We talking about generational wealth, but
Mm.
generational health, because the traumas end up repeating themselves. Guaranteed.
Ma'am, generational health. That's a whole word right there.
We want to make money, right? We want to leave things because we are people that are recently out of enslavement, recently out of colonialism, and if you just consider time in and of itself.
Mhm.
1619 was just yesterday. 1804 was just yesterday. So we want to create the wealth for our families, but are we thinking about the health of our families? What are we breaking? What traumas, what curses are we saying is going to stop with us? Because Tyrone realized that it stops with him. The
Mhm.
mess stops with him. And
Yes.
should he choose, or if he chooses to have children and have healthy relationships with partners, it stops with him. But what does that look like? What
Yeah.
should it look like?
Great question. Kendra wants to know, what's your advice for establishing healthy boundaries when the power dynamic is uneven?
And that is an interesting thing in our community, right? Patriarchal, matriarchal parents,
Mhm.
parents, you don't become an adult until they dead and gone. You not grown until they're gone. It don't matter if you got 10 times the bills than they have. I knew
Listen, you still a little girl. Little
you still
girl.
a girl. And you know, even in certain people's languages, um,
Mhm.
little child, that meant
Mhm.
that you were in a lower position. Um,
Mhm.
Grown folks speaks to you lived longer, so you got rights. And we've afforded people, we honor our elders. That is a
Mm.
gift that we want to continue to honor those who are our soon to be ancestors, who hold so much wisdom. We don't want to take away from them. But in the same vein, being able to now say, this does not serve me. It might
Mm.
have served you because that's all you had to work with. But in this generation, not that I think I'm better than you, not that
Right.
I think I know I'm better than you, but I understand things to be different. I understand that this thing that we might have done may not benefit us. I'll give you an example. I went off to college. I was raised where I ironed every Sunday without
Mhm.
fail, everybody's clothes in the household every Sunday. My mom would not allow us to put a wrinkled piece of clothing in the closet. Everything that was in the closet was going to be ironed.
Wow.
When I went to college, when I say that was one of the first things I divested of myself, that chain of obligation to ironing clothes and ironing everything before the week start, it went the first week. I would only iron what I needed to, and everything else went in the closet.
Mhm.
Now, my mother may not have understood that. She may not have agreed with it, but she understood it didn't change who I was.
Mhm.
It didn't break me. I am not a horrible person for it. It actually saves me time. it actually helps me to make better decisions as opposed to having all this stuff. So you see where I'm getting, where
Yes.
I'm not, and for those of us, because I'm a Gen Xer, right? So Gen Xers, we think we cool, we think we young, but in reality, these bones are telling us otherwise. So we are now at that space where Nicole, where we're like, oh snap, they calling us auntie, uncle. That is giving us a more senior role. And with that senior role, I could do one or two things with that. I can abuse it, or
Mm-hmm.
I can decide to say, you know what, I know better, so I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna have this younger person come alongside me. I'm not just gonna say, well, this is just how it is. It's always been that way. I can have you come alongside me and open up this book and say, well, you know what? This is why we've done things this way. This has been helpful. This is not. Or this is why we've always done it this way. And I'm going to take the time to explain that to you. And I think that is the game changer when we are trying to break generational trauma.
Yes.
Transparency that needs to come into play because grandma is holding trauma, unspeakable trauma that we may just see as, oh, well, she grew up in the country. She
Mm-hmm.
grew up as 2 generations removed from slavery, or she grew up on a sharecropper's field, or grandpa grew up in the mountains of Haiti or in Jamaica where there was no schooling.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's just their history. But now we understand literacy is a game changer. Now we understand being in abject poverty is a game changer. What do we do with this information?
Mm-hmm.
Have we walked a mile in grandma and grandpa's shoes
Mm.
to understand what their life could have been? Because they are not in the history books. They are real human beings who lived in these times. We are
Yes.
not that far removed from Brown versus Board of Education.
Mm-hmm.
We are not that far removed as obviously of sharecropper experience. That is just yesterday, y'all. So
Yeah.
what do we do with that? Have we walked a mile in our elders' shoes to now then see, adverse childhood experiences? They score 4 out of 10. Obesity, diabetes, cancer, poverty, lack of access to food. These are things now that now make sense for us, Nicole.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Mm-hmm.
we have this information to do one of two things. To now come from a place of humility and
Yes.
say, you know what? They did the best that they could.
Mm-hmm.
And we can then decide whether we are going to offer forgiveness, whether it was asked for or not. And then we get to decide what we're going to do moving forward. The healthy boundaries will look like, you know what? This person may never change.
Mm-hmm.
What we know about the elderly when we study human behavior is they are looking at their sunset and they're trying to figure out, have they done all they could? They are dealing with regrets themselves.
Yes.
That's a season of contemplation for them. They themselves are questioning. Now, are they verbalizing this to you? Maybe, maybe not. For the most part, they don't have the language, but we do. So, what do? Do we choose to forgive, whether it was solicited or not? And then at this forgiveness, what does healthy boundaries look like? Grandma don't have the capacity to speak to my children in a way that I find beneficial. We
Mm-hmm.
have a conversation with grandma and be like, grandpa, auntie, uncle, what I'm trying to do with my kids is XYZ. And they can look at you some type of way and they could be like, well, I don't agree. Or you know what? Tell me what that looks like. Or you
Right.
know what? Listen, you do you, I'm gonna do you. You get to decide what you do with that. The access they have to your children, the
Yes.
access they have to you. And I know we got some questions and comments in here that I want to make sure we are on it.
All right. So Kendra said that's the question. After you forgive, what do those healthy boundaries look like?
Let's think about boundaries around body,
Mm-hmm.
the physical body, access to your money, financial, access to your time, access to what you know, your intellectual property.
Okay.
So then we got to break it up. To what extent do they have access to any of these things? I know family
Mm.
members, they'll call you up in a minute and ask for gobs of money, and you get to decide what type of boundary you set around that. Do they know you that family member that you gonna call for $20, but you ain't calling for 2,000? And if they don't know that, whose responsibility is that for them to
Yeah.
know that? Yours. People are not mind readers. Your family members,
Mhm.
your brothers, your sisters, uncles, aunties, yes, you might have been raised with them, but they are not mind readers. They need to know how much is Delphine going to be, like Tyrone says, part of the mess? How much of my time will you have? Are we going to have access to all of my time? Are you going to think you're going to call me up at any time and I'm just going to drop whatever I'm doing? Or are you going to know that Delphine has time to do this on Fridays, every other Fridays? Are they going to know that Delphine has a full-time job and then some? So the best time to reach me is between 7 and 8 a.m. in the morning.
Mhm.
Are they going to know that if I don't tell them that? Are they going to know that my home is either going to be the home everybody hangs out at, or my home is the special occasion home, or my home is the home that siblings can hang out on the patio? And I go because I'm the consummate introvert, and I'm going on about my business while my husband is
Right.
hanging out with his peoples. Do they know this?
Mm-hmm. Has that been communicated?
Has it been communicated? And then has it been assertively communicated, Nicole? Because
Mm-hmm.
we are experts of shade. We are expert of passive aggressive communication. We throwing out stuff, and now people got to guess what you mean. That's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fair.
So Dr. Asha, who is my birthday twin, that's what BDT stands for. She said, run those boundaries bike. Bike meaning back. That's the country way of saying back. So I got Asha. I heard her say body, finances, time.
Energy, finance,
Energy.
intellectual property. What you
Okay.
know,
Mm-hmm.
what you know, and this is across the board with colleagues, partners, even in marriages, even in relationships. We should have healthy boundaries around things. It is not where we're running roughshod over this next human being, this next creation of God. That's not how we function.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So, yeah, making sure that we are being clear and assertive, not throwing shade, not making slick comments. Recently, I was on a chat with family members and I was clear on what I was going to do and what I was not going to do. And how they received it is not my responsibility. I
Mm-hmm.
was respectful, I was clear, I was assertive. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
disrespect, I ain't call nobody out names. I didn't make any sarcastic comments because people hide behind sarcasm. They
They
say the
do.
thing and they key, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, you was dead serious.
Mm-hmm.
You can't come for anybody that was keying, can you?
Watch. Watch. All right. Kendra said power of attorney makes those boundaries blurred. I'm actually really good at setting boundaries, but I'm not always sure the caregiver boundaries are healthy. But I just have to trust the process.
Listen, Kendra, me, you, and everybody else, when it comes to our parents, the conflicted messages that we have around that. I know it was personally tough for me dealing with a mother who's now deceased, going through cancer. She wasn't necessarily where I wanted her to be in terms of addressing the disease, but then I had to understand this is where she felt like she needed to be with the diagnosis. I may have wanted to push her further into confronting what the big C word was. and it caused tension. Mother daughters, whoo, Lord, that's a subject for another day, which I'm actually doing in a different space this tomorrow. Actually, if you want more information, I can get that to you.
Yeah, let us know at the end. Yeah.
Yeah,
For
mother daughter relationship. So
sure.
that caregiver role, where not everybody is like my dad, where when he had his prostate cancer surgery, I'll never forget, we were in Walgreens and he was walking, he was in pain. And my father's your typical Haitian man, very machismo, very in charge. I've never known him to be vulnerable. And he was vulnerable. And he said, my mom died before I could remember her. So my sisters raised me. He said, but now you're my mother. Like, wait a minute. I ain't trying to take on that role. But I realized, and I still realize, that was major for him to say. He literally handed over the reins to me.
Yeah.
That does not happen, because it didn't happen with my mom.
Right.
And it didn't happen because mother-daughters, we just an interesting dynamic. It doesn't happen that way. So it is a tricky place, Kendra, where it's like, whoo. So you have to walk that tightrope, right? Because I'm not going to pretend to be like therapists who may not look like us and may not think like us, to say, oh no, you need to just walk away. That's just not healthy. Walk away from that. It's toxic. Walk away. That's not necessarily realistic in a system that already doesn't take care of our own.
Right.
That's not realistic in hospitals where they need to see faces. I can't walk away because my parents pissed me off.
Right.
But what I can do is say, all right, I'm coming. I'm dealing with these doctors. And this is what I'm going to expect from you while I'm with you. You can say that. And then you can also have the caveat that says, if it doesn't play out like that, we're going to have another follow-up conversation. You can do that. That's well within your rights.
So the last thing I want to address, which was actually on our list, was the loneliness. I think that for folks that are trying to protect their peace and not be around the toxicity, it can be isolating, right? Because this is your family. This is your mama, your daddy, your sister, your brother, your cousin, your auntie, your uncle. And they garbage.
They won't do right.
Right. And so now it's like, who you gonna be around? So now you got to make friends as an adult, or you got to, have this chosen family, which is not always easy to do.
It's not, especially coming out of a pandemic where you might have had a set of friends and now you realize, yeah, out of the 10, I'm probably holding on to 5 on a good day. So there's even that dynamic. And this is where I encourage parents, make sure, and I think for me, my parents, I benefited from that. My parents, I saw family was friends, because these were people they were immigrating with. I tell people all the time, I didn't grow up around cousins. I didn't grow up around aunts and uncles because of our circumstances. The immigrant story sends people to the far flungs of the earth. So my parents modeled for me that they're friends. When my mom had my brother, I remember this late friend of hers coming and caring for her and cooking for her. When I got married, it wasn't aunts that were there. It was her friends who knew me as a baby who came through. So our God-given family may create levels of disappointment. And some of us may be in a space where we just can't go back to that. So I would encourage, and I'm a person of faith, I would encourage that you ask God to create your chosen family, to bring the people that are going to know you in this season of your life, that are going to be the ones where they become your mentors, they become your sisters. I didn't grow up with a sister. I've inherited so many more sisters in my journey that have been a blessing to me. And I joke all the time, y'all wouldn't have wanted me as a little sister or a big sister, but we make good friends. my sister
Yes.
friend, your
Yes.
chosen people, being led to take risks to get to know people and not allowing your past traumas to hinder your future promises in
Mm-hmm.
relationships and friendships. Um, Colleagues can become longtime friends,
Mm-hmm.
those in the same profession, co-workers, church friends, the neighbor, um, a friend of a friend. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm fortunate to see that even in my introvert personality, I've been able to connect with people where there are circles of friendship because they don't all know each other.
Right.
I joke that most people ain't gonna see each other until the day I die,
Mm-hmm.
and which
Boy.
is the reality. Because I ain't throwing no birthday parties. But we got these circles of chosen friendships that we are
Mm-hmm.
fostering and we're nurturing and
Yes.
we're planting into.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing. That's
Yeah.
a good thing. That's a good thing. So Antonio White, he is actually a clinician based here in Tallahassee. He's joined us and he had a few comments. He said healthy boundaries are vital to maintaining healthy relationships. I
Mhm.
agree, boundaries don't necessarily mean distance. It means assertiveness. And
Yeah.
he said also that space should be used as a tool for self, not as a
Yes.
punishment
Come through,
tool.
Antonio. Come through.
Yes, yes,
Let us
yes.
know. Totally,
Mm-hmm.
totally. Because we love using words like toxic and boundaries. Listen,
Mm-hmm.
dead the words and find the meanings behind it. And if it means sitting in front of a therapist to unpack all of this stuff, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
keeping in mind, this is all psychoeducational. Don't use this against me. Because only your therapist will know where the jumping off point is to get into the deep end of all of this, right?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, which is a great segue to asking, are you taking new clients, Delphine?
So the practice is definitely taking on new clients.
Okay.
Before I got on with you,
Yes.
I was on a team meeting. I have some phenomenal people on staff, whether they were colleagues that I'd worked with in education,
Mm-hmm.
interns that I'm directly supervising, MSW interns from local universities, psychiatric nurse interns
Okay.
that want to get that counseling piece and not just the medication. And I'm like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Licensed, registered. We culturally practicing cultural humility. We are people that are of brown, black and brown complexion. We speak Haitian Creole, but it's not
Yes.
the assumption that we know everybody because we black, because that's a fallacy in and of itself. We
Mm-hmm.
make no assumptions in therapy. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, Breakthrough is accepting new clients. We're
Mm-hmm.
licensed in Florida, Georgia, New Jersey, and counting. Um, you can find us at www.breakthroughcrc.com. Again, www.breakthroughcrc.com, or on Instagram or Facebook at Breakthrough CRC. Today's post was It's a Lot. That was our post for today.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't, it's so much going on, and it's compounding, and people have been coming in. Today was a very long day for our clinicians across the board. We've just been checking in different spaces. So today's post is just simply, it's a lot. We don't have the answers. We are
Mm-hmm.
right here with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, I put the your website up so folks can connect with you there. Now tell us about this mother and daughters talk that you're gonna have.
So I am a licensed therapist that I do with Get Lasting, which is a subsidiary of Talkspace.
Mm-hmm.
I do relationship webinars. We just did a whole retreat last weekend, virtual retreat on negative conflicts in
Mm.
relationships. Um,
Okay.
but we've started to do some other topics around careers. And this week, I was like, I'm taking this one. is around mother-daughter relationships. So it's tomorrow. If you go to www.getlasting.com,
Okay.
there's also an app called Lasting. And for those who are wanting to do some work around their relationships and couples, romantic relationships, it's a great app that you could be working on topical things, and you could be doing it remotely. Like you do your part, I do my part. Or you
Okay.
can come together on a weeknight and say, I want to sit and have this expert speak on this particular topic, whether it's negative conflict, whether it is sex after having children, or whether it's around discussing, figuring out next career moves, or in my case, the mother-daughter relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time,
Mm-hmm.
you can pay for that particular webinar, join on, and get as much out of it. It is a great psychoeducational experience. You
Okay.
get time. What I love about these webinars, Nicole, is that you get time to you listen to the speaker, but then you have time to do reflection activities with your partner,
Oh,
and in this case, on your own. So if
okay.
you all want to join, please do come on.
Nice. And so you said that's tomorrow at 8?
8:30 Eastern Standard. We have
Okay.
people across the country, people in other countries that join on. Really great experience.
Nice, 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 nice. Okay, good deal. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I hope this has been beneficial to you all. If you have enjoyed this conversation, give us some hearts or some, I don't know, some claps. Yeah, something, some thumbs up, something. Let us know. Ozzy said, awesome conversation tonight. Thank you, Ozzy. Ozzy's a clinician out of Virginia Beach.
Hey,
And
Virginia.
yes, and a regular on the show. So thank you, Ozzy. Oh, my cousin Tanya up in DC. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate y'all being here. Patricia Day down in Central Florida. All right. Wonderful. Y'all, we got to keep this conversation going around intergenerational
Mhm.
conversation and healing. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get our seniors talking
Mhm.
and give them some grace. Understand that, they done live some life.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but you also got to protect your peace as well. So,
yes, yeah,
there's balance in all of that. Balance in all of that. For those of you who are just joining Conversations with Nicole for the first time, I definitely want to invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel and add Greater Works Network to your Roku TV, because we are live here every Monday and Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. talking about Black and Brown mental health and um, trying to eliminate the stigma around mental health and wellness and encourage folks to get their checkup from the neck up. So
mm.
please get with Breakthrough. She's in Florida, New Jersey, and Georgia.
And yeah, in Georgia. And I tell people,
Right.
it don't have to be me. Just
They
get
don't
with somebody, because it's all about a good fit.
exactly. But
You
that's
are
part
the
of
consumer.
that's part of why we do the show too.
Yeah,
So you can see the clinician and see if they
yeah,
might be a good fit for you.
yes. See,
So, Delphine, this has been awesome. Great
thank
conversation. I
you.
have
Thank you for
thoroughly
the
enjoyed it.
format. Thank you.
Lots to think about. Look, we got the different types of boundaries, the access. We're gonna be assertive communicators now. We
Yep.
know the attachment styles. You set us right tonight. Set us right. I appreciate it. All
Thank-
right, so y'all, it's a long weekend. We got Memorial Day. Please be careful out there. Be
yes,
safe.
yes. Take
Um,
care of you.
take care of you. And next week we will have Ozzy on Monday. We're talking about don't sleep on sleep.
Oh man, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. People think that when we ask about sleep hygiene, like, why do you care? Ozzy, you about to bring a really good topic.
He
I will be
is.
tuning in.
He is. He is. He is. So look forward to seeing you all on Monday. So again, have a great weekend. Be safe. Be careful. Take care of yourself. And we'll see y'all then. Peace.